Ah! Excuse me? I want to say that it's perfectly okay to make mistakes, on the basis that when a mistake is made, that lessons are learnt and applied. G'day mates and fellow adventurers, my name is Mordecai. Most blokes have heard the classic spiel of learn from one's mistakes, and others have devised ingenious strategies to avoid all errors to deliver pitch perfection. And I'm going to be a contrarian and say that those mastermind methods are simultaneously boring and intriguing. I say this because one of the most iconic moments from Critical Role's second campaign was the time when the party, after making a crucial mistake in the court of the Kryn dynasty, had to roleplay their way out of going to prison in a hostile outback country by returning an artifact crucial to the main religion of the region. Really, Matt Mercer should have given the drow Australian accents, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I point this out since the comeback is often greater than the setback, even if that setback could be prevented. Unless you are in a bogan situation where a single mistake is going to be punished with rather severe consequences that are completely walkabout. The story I have for you today is about how an overzealous DM punishes a first-time player through some rather controversial methods. Before we get started with the story for the video, the goal is 1000 subs before the end of 2023. And when I get there, I will cover an RPG story which contains one of the most infamous characters in all of tabletop role-playing game history. Let's delve into the often terrifying world of r/RPGHorrorStories. Today's narrative is titled DM Banishes First-Time Player After They Make First-Time Player Mistakes, and is written by user Mr. McYeet. Last week, I, as a first-time player, played my first ever TTRPG and D&D campaign, jumping in part way into a Curse of Strahd campaign that was ongoing, in which the DM made me feel isolated, bullied, and an NPC/villain of the week. I'll split this story into 3 parts: the initial game introduction, the game session itself, and my banishment from the campaign. I arrived at the DM's house, who I went to university with before he dropped out. We had a rough start, but I considered us friends. But after how he treated me, I felt abused. There's 3 other players, a druid who is my best friend and has been here since the start of the campaign, and 2 guys I don't know personally, in the form of a warlock and a paladin, who I will refer to as kidnappers. More on that later. I introduce myself and show my character art. A halfling fighter cavalier, who I'll refer to as Fighter, who rides a mastiff as a mount, known as Bernie. I chat with the other players for an hour as the DM plans out the entire session and my introduction. This is apparently a common occurrence with this DM. During this time, I openly state, since DM is roleplay focused, I would like to have a friendly dog that can roleplay better than a giant rat or a pony, and do my best to learn and memorize the other characters. Eventually, the DM states that he has finished his preparations, and states that I will be a guard working for the evil church that the party has to burn down. I stop him and ask, "You want me to go engage the party?" He then states that I don't have to agree with the party. I saw this as a horrible thing to do, not only in my first ever game, but I'm pitted against the party, encouraged to go against them, and I must do some sort of high-level roleplay to go from bad guy to good guy, since I don't want to play a bad guy. The session starts, and the DM attempts to start the session with the other player's perspective, opening with, "Druid, you wake up next to Carla, who you spent the previous day with." The way that this was delivered implied really close relations with the character. Me being confused as to who Carla was, asked, "Does the druid have a girlfriend? Who is Carla?" That's when the DM explains that Carla is the party's adopted child. Excuse me, what? Yeah, let's just go ahead and turn that age restriction on now. If the DM is willing to do this without warning the new player ahead of time, it speaks volumes about what kind of nonsense they're prepared to get up to. Back to the story. Which is when I asked, Where am I? What am I doing? Am I nearby? And that's when the DM explained my character's location, which, upon retrospect, was an NPC assignment. I was stationed outside the church, having a shift of sunrise to sundown. I live, eat, and stay at the church and don't meet the party at the tavern. Nor will I have the ability to meet them since they must come to me. I only get paid gold when I show loyalty, and my fellow guard has already been punished for unloyalty, and I have never even met anyone of importance except the Archbishop, the bad guy who runs the church. The topper is that I am given the description of the kidnappers, Paladin and Warlock, and must oppose them, and prevent them from entering the church. At the same time, the party recap amongst themselves as I was updated. They then do some roleplay with the DM at the tavern, and then roleplay a meeting with the mayor, while I sit on the sideline as they roleplay doing my best to take notes. After half an hour, the party arrive at the church and I finally get to roleplay. The druid metagames a little bit and says she doesn't know the kidnappers, and I let her in. The kidnappers attempt to roleplay with me and convince me to change sides and join them, because they also don't want me to be a bad guy, before I shoo them off, because that is my job. I tell them that I will meet with them after my shift to help look for some missing people and see their evidence against the church. After which I do the sensible thing to not get my character into trouble, and report to the Archbishop. I am informed I will be rewarded for my loyalty, but oh no, they can't pay me right now. I then roleplay with the druid and I insist that I walk her home since she was followed here by kidnappers, and I don't know she's capable of defending herself, which would be a form of metagaming. She denies, which was my attempt for a good reason to leave the church, since I can't exactly bribe or lie since I don't have any good deception ability to my fellow guards who are paid in loyalty. After which, we time skip to the end of my shift. I am told I have a curfew at 9 PM, and must lie to my fellow guards so I can meet the party at the tavern. I bring my dog into the bar since I'm entering a tavern where the kidnappers stay, which triggers an event with Carla where she states she is scared of my dog because the mayor has the same kind of dogs. Some truth circles and evidence later, I believe everyone in the session ends with me returning before curfew. I was upset that I did nothing and had to spend the whole time role-playing to be a good guy. I am saddened by no one liking my dog because Carla was scared of my dog, and was so upset I wrote up a whole new character so I won't be seen as a villain by the party and NPCs. I planned my death for the next session so I can play a bard that allows more roleplay opportunities. At the same time next week, I'm told that the sessions are fortnightly and I received the following message from DM. Actually, I do need to discuss with you about some of the comments you made during the previous session. I'll be flat with you, some of them were inappropriate. The main ones are asking whether or not Druid's character has a girlfriend, which to clarify is and was inappropriate, especially given the context of the session and events, and in no way relevant to the situation/session. And insisting on walking Druid's character back even when she said that she could look after herself repeatedly, which should have been listened to and not had the point pushed. My main gripe is with the first one, and unfortunately it's not something that I can overlook. There is also the issue of attempting to play main character in a team/co-op game. I do not have the patience, nor am I particularly willing to accommodate such behaviour. Given all of this, my decision is as follows. You will only be attending one more session at my table, and nothing beyond that. I am firm in this. And that was the end of the message. This is related to me not knowing or understanding who Carla was from the DM's introduction, me attempting to roleplay away from the church, and me apparently bringing my dog into the tavern, which was an abuse of power, metagaming, and allegedly spotlight hogging. I attempted to defend my actions, to which he then accused me of metagaming. The druid did it more and did it more obviously, however, abusing power and making players uncomfortable. I contacted the druid and they informed me the DM asked the players if I had offended anyone, and they all said that I didn't, meaning the only one offended was the DM. He said that me being a villain was good roleplay material, which is a hard ask for a first-time player, and compared my character's situation to the Germans during World War II and felt justified putting my character in a position since it gave the players a benefit? The DM then continued to defend their actions and dismissed my arguments without apology. Not only did the DM isolate me from the players and make me feel like a villainous NPC, they then punished me instead of warning me of my actions and not caring for me being a first-time player. But at the time, I felt like I was a jerk and like I was the problem. I felt sick and abused. The next day, I discussed this with some of my other friends and colleagues, and they agreed with me. The DM bullied me and did things I was uncomfortable with. They intended on me being an NPC, and the DM didn't care about the aspects that were important to my character. One of my colleagues felt so bad that I was invited to try a TTRPG that would be starting up soon, even though they were already at max capacity. I then informed the DM of my Curse of Strahd campaign that our friendship was over and I wouldn't attend any more sessions. To recap, the DM's terrible introduction and planning made me fumble around his campaign like an NPC, and then he accused me of being a jerk. I want to know if he is correct or not. For those who didn't read the whole thing, the DM forced me to be a bad guy and disliked my first-time player actions and roleplay to try to escape to the good guys, and so he banishes me. And that's where the story ends. Well, mates, to provide my own recap on the situation, we have the DM using one of those dreaded DMPCs in the form of Carla, who is implied to be underage on top of being suspiciously close to one of the player characters. Which I'm not going to analyse further because, if true, it's disgusting. We have the DM approve of a character which has a companion animal which his precious Mary Sue is easily scared of. We have the DM put a first-time player in a position which forces them to have to make impossible decisions with the ever-present threat of probably severe punishment. Plus the DM's decision to make Carla scared of dogs, after they had already been to a mansion with dogs in it, and seemingly showing no prior signs of such a phobia. And then, when confronted, instead of trying to get the situation properly resolved, invents issues that OP has caused, which they use to bully the poster, including a completely baseless comparison. From the perspective of someone who has more experienced TTRPGs than what can be reasonably expected from a first-time player, this is firmly a situation where the DM was an absolute jumbuck. Now, I will say that a mistake made in earnest from which lessons are learnt and applied for the better is a highly favourable outcome. The problem with this statement is that it assumes that a person made a mistake and assumes that the mistake wasn't intentional or intentionally malicious. As far as I can tell, the only mistake our first-time player made was asking about who Carla was immediately when it was brought up during the session, instead of waiting until a break or a logical point to do so. Because the DM is apparently so delicate that it would have hurt their feelings to take 15 seconds prior to the session to explain who Carla was. Our DM, on the other hand, has demonstrated a repeated pattern of problematic behaviour or mistakes, which has me wondering, why was the DM doing this to a first-time player? Is the problem DM the kind of twisted crook who writes revenge schemes on a blackboard with a sick fingernail? The best answer I can puzzle out is that this is some sort of extremely petty revenge based on jealousy, as it was mentioned that the DM dropped out of the same university that OP had graduated from, and the two of them had maintained some form of contact since their days at the college. There might be well more to the story than what we're seeing here, mates. Which brings us to the walkabout for a potential solution. As a DM, if you really want to commit to the idea of having a new player abandon the bad guys and start working with the party, you need to set up the player to fulfill that role. Perhaps give the player a known friend who has recently mysteriously vanished, and their character is really curious about the suspicious circumstances. If you want to go for a more overt role, you could have the character be a double agent, being a supplicant of valuable information to the party, and providing eyes and ears from within the target organization. These are suggestions that could work within the campaign to avoid the player being an NPC. But really, considering that the DM was determined to set up the first time player for failure, the best option for the player is to take a leaf out of the book of King Arthur. Go walkabout and find a new game with a DM who isn't a massive jerk. Thank you for watching the video. If you like my content and want to see more or wish to support the channel, please hit the subscribe button and maybe leave the video a like. It's free to do, and every bit of support is highly appreciated. Once again mates, thank you for watching, and I shall see you all next time.